Okay, Sega Lindbergh Universal Cabinet Restoration Part 12 update. Just thought I'd give a bit of an update where things are at with the machine. It's more or less finished now. As you can see, there's some unfamiliar cabling and wiring in here. This is pretty much mostly unnecessary. In a cabinet conversion or a console conversion, all you really need to do is have audio out going into the soundboard of the Lindbergh and your HDMI going into an adapter and into the monitor. As I mentioned before, PlayStation 3 with an HDMI to DVI adapter doesn't work on the Lindbergh monitor, so that's why I got this little KVM switch here. Test Smart. It does pretty much the same thing, I think, as a converter like a HDMI to VGA or something like that. I don't really know how it works, but it's changing the EDID or the HDCP handshake or some technical stuff like that, which allows the HDMI out of that to then go into the Lindbergh monitor and work. So I'll just go through this stuff here, just explain what the idea of it is. Firstly, this is the key part which allows me to have two consoles. So I'm using a PlayStation 3 in my testing and an Xbox 360. So that cable there and one of those cables there goes into this box here, one there and one there, and then the HDMI and the HDMI as well from each box. If you turn the machine on and you don't have the USB plugged in, you don't get a picture on the image, so that's something to look out for if you go down this path. Now what didn't work was this left right out. So I was hoping that I'd be able to just simply have the two consoles plugged in, then some audio out of here across into the soundboard, which is just in there. Just up there. But it didn't work, so that sort of left me a bit stuck. So I went onto eBay or Amazon and I bought one of these Cynic HDMI audio extractor, and it's actually been really handy. So what I do is the HDMI comes out of here, got to think for a minute, just with a short cable into the extractor, and then that splits the audio pretty nicely actually. It does a headphone jack, the left and right RCA, and an optical or Toslink. So I took advantage of that. The headphone jack I've just got going out the back, and that can be used for something like a subwoofer or you know, just some powered speakers if you wanted to have a bit more oomph in the system. These two, left and right, they just sort of run through the back there and up into the soundboard. So they are controlling, they're just coming out of the Lindbergh speakers, just straight up. Then with the optical cable, I've got that running around here, looped around, and then into this little guy, digital to analog audio hi-fi headphone amplifier with Toslink and coax. So that cable runs into here. Then from there, out the back here, I've got like a headphone extension cable running all the way up through the back of the console, through the back of the cabinet out here and then into the headphone jack here. So there it is right there. So what's cool is I really didn't know what the volume situation was going to be like when you've got something coming straight out with no control other than the in-game volume. I probably didn't explain it properly, but previously I had this volume knob connected to the headphone jack and the speakers on the Lindbergh. But what happened was, because there was no actual cut-off switch between the two, when you plugged the headphones in, the audio was still coming out of the speakers. So you could sort of turn this up and then turn the normal volume knob down, and you could get it so there was no audio really coming out of the speakers on the cabinet. But it just wasn't satisfactory, so this does not turn up the volume on the headphone. You use this one here, and it really makes a difference. It's sort of just really clean and good bass. There is a little bit of a hiss when there's no sound coming out, but I don't know if that's because these are just cheap components or whether, you know, there's so much audio and power in there, whether I'm getting a bit of interference. So I've taken a few photos of me putting this whole board together. It was a bit tricky. I just used the original Lindbergh PC mounting board to get the dimensions. Just bought a bit of MDF and then just use these cable ties to hold it all in. So what else have we got? Power. Okay, so I wanted to just run it off one power board. So what I did was this here and here, these two USB outs, they're normally for your keyboard and your mouse, and I tested the voltage and they're both 5 volts. So one of these runs into here, I think, and just powers that, and the other one, I think, maybe powering this one, can't quite remember, and then this one here is powering the Test Smart. And what else have I got? I've got a couple of USBs here. One powers this little light I've got here, USB light, and the other one runs all the way up and then into the cabinet, and is just one of these. So these USBs I put in there. So one is actually connected to PlayStation, so I've got a direct connection to the PlayStation, and the other one is really just for charging my phone. So it looks a bit tricky and confusing, but I just laid it all out and made a few changes and it's worked out nicely. I said in a previous video I was trying to save money on cables and use adapters and things like that, but I did end up spending another 20 or 30 bucks on shorter HDMI cables and these little USB to whatever that is, DC barrel connector. So just having a look at the top here, I've tidied it right up. Oh, that's right, so the white USB there, that's the USB out of the KVM switch. Goes up the back, through here, and then that's going straight into the Brook board. So I haven't sort of, well, I've considered, you know, lag and things like that, but there's nothing I can do about it. got all these nice and tidy now. So took advantage of this USB, which is just powering the light strip here. So you won't get the light strip turning on when the cabinet turns on, only when the PlayStation turns on or when the console turns on. So even when the KVM switch is turned on, it's not sending power out until the console's on. Just got this little one today. Came with this Brook Fighting cable kit. Reason being is I already had a kit like that, but if I want to use the turbo button, which I probably will never use, but I want the cabinet and the control panel to be complete, so I've just got it laid down here at the moment, just tucked away. So what that means is I can make this into a turbo button, and that'll be the PlayStation 4 touchpad button down the track. Yeah, so my understanding is the turbo button, you press it and then you press whatever button you want to be turbo, and I'll get a button that I can backlight. This is all set up to light it up. So that's just your auxiliary buttons again, your extra buttons. So for PlayStation Start, PlayStation Select, L3, R3, and then there your normal buttons there. This is our tournament switch, which doesn't really make sense on a big thing like this, but it isolates these buttons. It's been pretty funny. I've had a few head scratching moments where things weren't working and I realised that was turned off. And then here we've just got, I think, left stick, right stick, direction pad, my USBs, headphone and volume, which is really just this little unit here. Just means you've got to run the audio out. Actually, that little box I showed you down here, those left and rights will come all the way up to here, into here, and then back out again, back down, and then into the soundboard. So I got volume control here as well. So all that I/O is just intact. Everything fit pretty nicely. Mechanisms are still working. I just cut these things out of some placemats just to protect the original finish. I got myself a little replica ashtray. So it's all pretty tidy. What threw me a bit is on the Brook board, and they've thought about it. This is a R and this is an L. So the shoulder buttons on your PlayStation, L1, R1, L2, R2. So on my Vulix replica Game Wizard, they're the other way around, so that threw me off a bit. And I think the reason is because the R button's a lot more prominently used than the L's. So this is just a setup for testing. Just trying to keep it minimalist. So what I did down the back, the idea is that if you want to move the machine around or transport it, everything that plugs in inside you can just plug into adapters. So basically that might be PlayStation, Xbox, and then this is just the additional power from the PS3. And then there's just the extra audio I have from that headphone jack coming out. So I'd probably just use it for a little sub. Alright, so I'll turn it on. Unfortunately, it doesn't switch on the fly, so I can turn it on. So I think whichever console you want to use, you need to turn that on first. And then turn the cabinet on. And then I turn on all the guts. Actually, you can switch live between the two consoles using the little switch down here. But what I found was the video will switch, but the Brook board won't pick it up. So look, I'm just happy that I can run two consoles without having to plug anything in. You just pretty much pick the console you want to play and turn that one on. Let's close this door for a tick.
Akai Katana.
So for instance, got this little cable. Little charger for the phone, so that can just sit like that. And then I got these little USB lights, mainly for just easily testing whether things were connected. So that's being powered from the little test smart. But this one's got no light because the PlayStation's turned off. If I turn the PlayStation on, it should light up. There we go. So here's a little volume. And then that blows out the screen obviously, but doesn't quite tuck in with one hand. I'll have to sort of go around the back and pull the cables through just to stop them from jagging up. You can see it makes it easy to work or check anything. So then just plugging in the headphones. So it won't cut the volume, I'll turn it down and I don't know if you can hear that. So that's just the headphones there, and then I can turn it up down the bottom. So I've just been tucking those up here. Just turn it up.
Okay. Akai Katana.
Start. I just remembered I'd remapped the buttons. Not too good with one hand. So if I just switch this button here, we're into the PS3, but no luck on the controls. So I don't know if I just turn off the PlayStation, turn off the Xbox. Maybe I can turn this one off. And when you've got two devices plugged in, I don't know what the default ends up being either. Maybe it's the last one you were on. All right. I'll just set up a tripod and we'll have a look at some other stuff. Actually, before I set up a tripod, I just wanted to show off this final showdown instruction space I've done. I'll see if I can show some images of the artwork. Just got it off the internet and just cut it to size. It's on this Easy Tack stuff, which is what they use for, you might have seen it in the shops on the floor for COVID spacing and things like that. It's just a hard wearing but easy to remove sticky finish. And don't know if you've seen the original Lindbergh manual, but it does have this other little instruction space here, which I've made a replica of, and you'll see in the pictures on the screen. And just did the same thing with the little 100 yen stickers, so that's really finishing things off now. I was going to blank out this middle section with some card or something, because on the original instruction space this has got sort of a block out stuff on it, but I quite like the whole thing being lit up.
侮ってく大人。
Alright, thanks for watching. I'll do some more games soon.
両者譲らず